Two large storms will be coming to the United States over the next few days, and these storms are going to bring some big problems, including the return of more severe weather. This includes damaging winds, large hail, and the threat of tornadoes. Additionally, a big cold front will be impacting millions across the United States, with temperatures falling by as much as 20 degrees over the next few days. Lastly, the tropics are heating up. We have a high risk of development in the Caribbean Sea, where our next tropical storm or hurricane is likely to form. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. And we'll begin with what's happening across the country today. And right now, we have one large storm that is currently impacting the Northeast. This has actually brought plenty of severe weather over the last 48 hours from the Mississippi Valley all the way through the Northeast. It is going to continue to exit offshore throughout the day today, and we will see some colder weather on the backside of this low pressure system. On top of that, high winds are expected throughout the daytime today, especially near the Great Lakes and across New England. Now, behind this is another large storm that is currently forming back over in the northern plains, and as we go into tonight and early tomorrow, we are anticipating some heavy snowfall to be a possibility across the northern Rockies, but also very high winds are going to come out of this storm across the Midwest and a large chunk of the Great Plains tonight into tomorrow. So get ready for that. And then as we go into late Tuesday into Wednesday, this large storm will intensify over the Great Lakes, bringing even colder weather on the backside of it. Now, throughout this week, we are anticipating at least a couple of large storms to impact the United States. So let's talk more about that by looking at our jet stream and our mid-level flow. This is what it looks like right now. We got a pretty intense negatively tilted trough that is currently located over the Northeast. This is still bringing some showers and thunderstorms this morning to New England, but it will be moving out later today. Behind that is another large storm that is sitting in the northern plains right now. This one's actually very intense. However, this storm is too far to the north to actually produce any sort of risk of severe weather, mainly because the warm weather that comes from the Gulf is not really being pulled off to the north very well. So this is not really a storm system that I'm expecting any sort of severe weather out of. However, it will bring some rain over the next couple of days to the Great Lakes in the Northeast, a big shot of cold air on the backside of it, and then high winds will continue for the next couple of days. And look at the mid-level flow by Tuesday. Very strong winds all across the board from the northern plains through the Northeast. This could create some turbulence if you're taking any sort of aircraft from like Dallas, Fort Worth, for example, up to like Wisconsin or Illinois. So just a little heads up if you have any sort of flights on Tuesday. As we go into Wednesday and Thursday, that storm system will move out. Cold weather will continue to usher in on the backside of it. And then Thursday and Friday is the days that I'd be watching very closely for if you're in the central or southern plains. The reason why is because we're going to have a weaker storm system that's going to eject over the Rocky Mountains on Thursday. This could bring a risk of severe weather Thursday and Friday to parts of the central and southern plains. It does not look overly intense like the last couple of storms we've seen, but this is a storm system that is taking the perfect path to at least produce some level of severe weather here across the central and southern plains. I definitely would not rule out at least a few tornadoes on either Thursday or Friday. Saturday and Sunday, that storm system will move into the Dixie Alley. There could be a little bit more severe weather on Saturday across the Dixie Alley. And then by the time we go into next week, things become more uncertain. However, long-term models have been hinting that a really powerful storm system may end up forming during the early portion of next week. And if that were to happen, we could see a more legitimate threat of significant severe weather to return to parts of the Midwest and all the way through the southern plains. So a lot of stuff to watch for over the 10 days. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, as we'll keep you posted with the latest on all of these big storms that are coming to the United States. Now let's put this all into more simplistic terms with the future radar over the next few days, beginning with today. Right now, we got showers and thunderstorms lined up across New England, and then a pretty intense low pressure system that is forming in Minnesota and the Dakotas. Notice how tight these isobars are right now. That indicates that we have very high winds all the way from the Texas Panhandle back through Wisconsin. That is because of a tight pressure gradient that we have. That is essentially a corridor that we're going to have high winds with throughout basically the entire day today. By tonight and early tomorrow, that intense low pressure system will move across the Great Lakes. Luckily, this is not going to be very impactful when it comes to any sort of severe weather or flooding threat, but there will be some snow flurries across North Dakota today. And then on top of that, we're going to have some really cold weather Tuesday into Wednesday on the backside of this low pressure system. That low pressure system will literally just sit across the Great Lakes Wednesday, and then Thursday into Friday, it will finally move into Canada. While that's happening, we're going to have another low pressure system forming back over along the Rockies and also into parts of the Texas Panhandle Thursday night. And this could bring some severe weather Thursday to parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. It is a conditional and uncertain risk at this time. If the trough speeds up at all, we will almost undoubtedly undoubtedly have severe weather on Thursday, but if it slows down, it's not going to really have any time to produce any legit threat of severe weather. So Thursday's in question right now. Friday looks a little bit more legit, though. I do think Friday we could see some more significant severe weather take place across Texas, Oklahoma, even parts of Missouri, Kansas, and Arkansas, with damaging winds, hail, and perhaps a few tornadoes being on the table. And then by Saturday, this low pressure system at the surface is going to be weakening, which basically means we're not going to have as organized of a risk of severe weather, but there may be some isolated severe weather from Missouri back to the Gulf Coast on Saturday. Sunday, we're not really looking at a whole lot here across the Ohio Valley in the southeast, aside for some showers. And I also want to point out that an atmospheric river event will be occurring from Friday through Sunday across the Pacific Northwest. This could bring some big rainfall and also snowfall to higher elevations Friday all the way through Sunday. So definitely something to watch for there. Now, as we go into early next week, that's where things become a lot more uncertain. However, there have been long-term models here, including the GFS model, that are hinting at a pretty large storm system forming. But I do want to point out that a lot of computer models had this storm system way more intense on previous model runs. This is really one of the weakest runs that we've seen for this potential storm system about 8 days from now. So it's too uncertain exactly what's going to happen around Monday or Tuesday of next week, but this is a time frame I'd at least be keeping an eye on for, especially if you have any sort of outdoor plans. For right now, no big concerns, but this is a storm that we will need to watch. And over the next 24 hours, we are anticipating very high winds for much of the Great Plains in the Midwest. This morning, the winds are already very high. We have wind gusts upwards of 40 to 60 miles per hour from Texas all the way through western Wisconsin, and this is only going to continue into the afternoon today. It will not be nearly as intense by this evening, but widespread wind gusts between 20 to 40 miles per hour are likely from Oklahoma all the way through the northern plains, and even some areas around 40 to 60 miles per hour will continue across parts of the Midwest and the northern plains tonight. And then tomorrow, things start to quiet down quite a bit. If you're back over in the southern plains, it will still be pretty windy across the Midwest and the Great Lakes Tuesday, which means with the wind coming out of the northwest, we are also going to see our wind chills come into play here, as the temperatures across the board are going to be in the 40s and 50s for a lot of areas in the Midwest and also across the Great Lakes. So get ready for some pretty cold weather today, tomorrow, even into Wednesday and Thursday across these areas. Over the next few days, we are expecting a little bit of a roller coaster for temperatures. Our cold pocket of air behind the low pressure system in New England is now making its way into the mid-Atlantic. That will be impacting New England later today. A little warm pocket of air is reaching all the way up to Minnesota and Wisconsin, but we don't really have a whole lot of juice for severe weather to actually happen. As we go into Monday evening and into Tuesday, that shot of cold air will be on the backside of this low pressure system across the Midwest and the northern plains. And then by Wednesday and Thursday, that is just going to sit in the Ohio Valley and across the Northeast, with below average temperatures continuing to be at play. By the weekend, we're going to have above average temperatures once again for most of the Great Plains, and then a little bit of below average temperatures back over in the Pacific Northwest. And then eventually into next week, things become more uncertain. And these are the high temperatures for today. Many areas in the southern plains, including Texas, are up near 100 degrees for high temperatures. Small little pocket of even some 60s and 70s are reaching all the way back up into the Midwest today. By tomorrow morning, things are going to cool down dramatically. Many areas in the Midwest only in the 40s. And then Wednesday morning will be one of the colder mornings of the week, especially in Minnesota and the Dakotas, with some areas dropping below freezing. We could even have some 40s all the way down towards Atlanta, Georgia Wednesday morning. So we're going to definitely have some cold weather over the next few days, and then a widespread freeze is likely Thursday across northeastern Minnesota and most of Wisconsin. Friday, not going to be much different either, and then by Saturday and Sunday, those temperatures are just going to continue to be on the lower side of things across almost the entire northern tier of the country. And shifting gears to the tropics, we have a high chance of tropical development over the next few days in the Caribbean Sea. And obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is, will this impact the United States? Because this is obviously very far to the west, and this is honestly one of the furthest west areas that we've had for tropical development so far this year. The only thing that really has been further west was Imelda, which ended up turning out to sea. Now, this area of development has a couple of different scenarios at play. I do think it will become Tropical Storm Melissa within the next few days. It's a pretty disorganized area of convection in the Eastern Caribbean. With that said, I do think development will happen. Two scenarios I think are at play at this point, one of which is the more likely scenario. It kind of stalls just south of areas like Cuba over the next few days, and then will eventually turn off to the northeast, but it will likely become some sort of strong tropical storm or hurricane. The second scenario is a slower progressing scenario. What I mean by that is it would basically develop slower over time, moving in the direction of the Western Caribbean Sea. And then from there, there's a potential that it could enter into the Gulf. There's also a potential it could go right over Cuba. Cuba. So there's basically several scenarios at play here, but these are generally the three main scenarios. I'd say right now the odds of it just turning out to see like this are about 80% or so, and then this over here is more like a 20% chance. And honestly, I don't think this is going to go right into the Gulf, but I do not want to rule it out at this point. This hurricane season has been very, very quiet for the United States. Hopefully it stays that way, knock on wood, but obviously that is not a guarantee. We still have at least another month until hurricane season is over. And this is the GFS Ensemble group, which basically shows us where this tropical system could go over the next few days. It's likely going to develop by Wednesday or Thursday, and if it does, it will likely impact areas like Haiti and also Puerto Rico as at least some sort of tropical storm. And then by Friday and Saturday, it will start to move off to the northeast. There's also, again, the second scenario where it takes longer to develop, and if that were to happen, there is a possibility it could go further to the west, and in that case, we would have to watch for Cuba and even parts of the United States much more closely, perhaps even back over near the Yucatan Peninsula. So there's some areas that we're going to have to definitely keep an eye on, but obviously the next few days are very critical to where this is going to end up going. So stay tuned to the channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Once we have a better idea of where this is going, we'll be the first to let you know. But again, no imminent concerns for the United States. If you're over in the Greater Antilles, though, definitely watch this very closely. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. Our next forecast will likely be tomorrow or Wednesday, so click the bell icon so you're notified with the latest updates, and we'll see you all again in the next forecast.